I've prepared this video for you that you can see on screen now, and I'm really excited to narrate that for you so that by the end of this video, you're going to go out into the world in full confidence, knowing how to actually prepare your meals. And what that will effectively allow you to do is sidestep what, in my estimation, is one of the most frequently committed unforced errors that people in both your periphery and mine are committing every single day. And in just a minute, I'll briefly expound upon the consequences of that unforced error. But what it is this default delegation of what is probably the most critical function of your entire life. Arguably, food preparation is literally what fuels you, what composes you at the cellular level. You become what you eat. And the problem is that most people, for being honest, are by default delegating that to fast food chains that don't have your best interest at heart. But I do. I really do care about you. And by the end of this video, you're going to be given the same gift that I wish I could have given myself about a decade ago when I was dealing with the consequences of not knowing how to engage this process, not being self-sufficient, to not have to rely on fast food chains, on processed packaged foods that line the aisles of the many grocery stores that you have access to that not coincidentally also have a corresponding pharmacy that attempts to sell you the fix to the problem that you've just purchased. You've just purchased a processed packaged food that is going to bioaccumulate because of the industrial seed oils therein. And so this process that I wasn't aware of food preparation, it had me contending with the consequences of exercise-induced asthma, allergic rhinitis, just a really stuffy nose, itchy, watery eyes. I was effectively just allergic to everything under the sun. I also had this really rare and what doctors told me to be an incurable disease called eosinophilic esophagitis. And I don't look to throw a pity party by any means. I'm on the other side of that struggle now. I just hope to inspire you as to what is possible, inspire you as to the fact that you can get better by putting higher quality food into your mouth. And this process is not only going to allow you to not have to contend with the same consequences that I did, but it has so many other ancillary benefits. To be honest with you, my 4th year of weightlifting, I got better results than the 3 preceding that. And I attribute a lot of that success to the higher quality foods that I was putting in my body. This is one of the greatest superchargers that you could equip yourself with. So let's get started, show you this process A to Z. And what it really hinges on here, as you can see, is an Instant Pot lid. And that's basically going to serve as the base of operations. So I'm just opening up the pantry here and I'm grabbing a gram scale. You don't need to weigh things out down to the gram like I do by any means. I am an INTJ robot, and so I have an immense appreciation for being methodical. And so I'm just weighing out 200 grams of distilled water here. If you haven't seen my video on the only drinking water that is not toxic, you should definitely check that out when you get a chance, because water distillation is going to be one of the highest ROI things that you could do in terms of your health. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting some pre-rinsed basmati rice into the pan, and then I'm weighing out the rice for the next time. And so it's going to be 100 grams measured dry, raw of basmati rice. But again, you could measure this out in a volumetric fashion. I like to be more precise, going down to the gram. And if you want to dish out 10, 20 bucks for one of these gram scales, then I would definitely recommend that. But if you don't see yourself doing this, then you don't have to. You can certainly use 3/4 of a cup, just whatever volumetric units that you want to employ. It's perfectly fine. And so I'm weighing out my rice for the next meal, because what I like to do is not so much soak, but rather rinse my rice in distilled water. And I do that just to offload some of the microplastics that ostensibly could get incorporated into it just from the packaging that it's sold in. So what I'm grabbing here is just the remainder of my meal. So I've got 250 grams of beef in my right hand, and then on my left, now both hands, I'm grabbing some free-range eggs here. I like to have 2 hard-boiled eggs with each meal. And Here I'm just putting in, it's about half a pound of beef, a little bit more. So I'm just walking that over to the Instant Pot rig here, and I'm going to be programming that for a 6-minute on low cook time. You can see I've got the water distiller cranking. I use that thing every single day, and I'm setting this to 6 minutes on low. I don't want to say this is a hidden function, but just be cognizant of the fact that the default mode on these Instant Pots is going to be high steam. I prefer low steam for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is it will, by extension, cook at a lower temperature and result in less oxidation, for example, of the cholesterol contained within the egg yolks and the beef mince. So I'm just tidying up here, putting things back in their rightful place. Right here, I've got some salt in my right hand, some citric acid in my left. Citric acid is a really great natural sanitizing agent. I like to use that to clean up afterwards. It works really well on stainless steel, by the way. Highly recommend that for disinfecting your water distiller if you've invested in one. And now what I'm doing, I'm just homogenizing real quick the basmati rice with the distilled water. And again, I'm just going to be rinsing that, not soaking it for hours on end. And that's because I rely on my basmati rice to provide me with an ample amount of manganese. And I find that a lot of modern diets now are fairly deficient in that, including the carnivore diet. So the reason that I'm not soaking is because I just don't have a clear answer on whether or not the manganese is going to leach out into the distilled water. So I think rinsing is a little bit of a safer play if manganese is something that you are relying on your rice to provide. What I'm doing here is I'm just tossing and washing here my beef gelatin. So I like to take 1 level tablespoon of that. It's about 15 milliliters with each meal. So I'm taking that twice a day, and then either half or 1 level teaspoon of creatine. So if I take it twice a day with meals, I will do half of a teaspoon. If I'm taking it once a day, like earlier today, I was training arms, for example, I just took 1 teaspoon, level teaspoon. So I'm using my spork there to level that out. And I'll just mix that in my pomegranate juice. I've got a 1 liter diluted pomegranate juice solution that I'll sip on in between sets. That's just showing the start of the 6 minutes. So with my particular setup, it takes about 7 minutes to get up to pressure, to get up to temperature. So the more food you're cooking, the more water you're utilizing, the longer it will take. Could take up to, I don't know, maybe 10, 11, 12 minutes. But a lot of that is passive, right? So while it's actually cooking, you don't have to actually manage it. It's not like a stovetop. It's not a really high acuity process that requires your attention. It's really straightforward, just storing my milk until my meal is ready and putting the salt, citric acid on the other side of the table there. I'll be salting my food. If you are eating a diet that is not processed, is not packaged, you definitely want to make sure you're getting enough electrolytes. So I primarily get my potassium from milk, certainly from meat, certainly pomegranate juice, but my sodium would be very, very low unless I used Redmond real salt is the salt that I'm using. So I take a level 3/4 of a teaspoon, and you'll see in just a minute, I will sprinkle that onto my freshly prepared meal here, just releasing the steam there. And I'm going to be pulling off the lid. This is very hot. I find that my Instant Pot, most of them have handles, mine doesn't. I just try to expeditiously transport that to the silicone mat there. And what I will be doing here is taking my glass jar. It's an old jar of coconut oil, and I'm just going to be dropping the hard-boiled eggs in that, which it's basically just distilled water that I've kept in the fridge. And the benefit of this is just the separation of the shell. And that shell separation, it just makes it very, very seamless. You could literally do this with one hand. Very seamless to peel the eggs. And you'll see in just a minute how well facilitated that process is just by dropping them in the cold water. As I said, 3/4 of a teaspoon. And I'm just sprinkling that on to my beef, to my rice here. And I will do that with each meal. So I'll get about 1.5 teaspoons of sodium, or of salt rather, per day. Because otherwise, would probably struggle to get even a gram of sodium, and that definitely would not be enough. I would get really bad muscle cramps, and I would just wake up in the middle of the night. For example, with the Charlie horse, I've tried it before. You do not want to go on a low sodium diet. That is certainly ill-advised here. Just spinning the egg here. So if an egg is raw, you'll find that it doesn't spin very well, but if it's cooked, because the inside is solidified, it's not liquid, then it's going to be able to spin much faster. I was just doing that to show you how quickly you can actually peel the eggs, right? By the time it stops spinning, I've already peeled that egg, and it takes literally 10, 20 seconds. Very, very fast process here. So I'm just dropping those into my stainless steel container here. This is a seed oil-free prep. It does not get much better than that. No oils have to be added. None of these refined, bleached, deodorized industrial seed oils that are frankly plaguing mankind, that not a lot of people are really sold on this notion, unfortunately. There's a lot of vested interests that have effectively erected this smokescreen that's difficult to see through, unfortunately. And science, so-called science, is unfortunately getting leveraged, not dissimilar to how the tobacco industry leveraged science to propagate their best interests here. This meal smells so good. Beef, rice, and eggs. I've got the tall glass of milk as well, so about half of a liter with each meal, and I'm just chowing down here. This is a really good meal, and it's really wholesome. It's really micronutrient dense. It has virtually no anti-nutrients, so the bioavailability of the nutrients in the beef, in the milk, in the eggs is going to be sky high. And I just find that this process is something that I wish I would have known about a decade ago. So that was a really big bifurcation point, if you will, in my life, where I had my doctor excuse me from the dining meal plan on my college campus. I started to realize just how toxic modern so-called foods are, which could most aptly be characterized as frankenfoods. And it's just amazing the small degree of discernment with which I, for the first 20 years of my life, applied to the things that touched my tongue, teeth, and lips. And I cannot emphasize this enough. More than any other aspect of your life, even exercise. I love weightlifting. I do, and I'm a huge proponent of it. And it's not that we want to emphasize one area of life at the all-out expense of the other. We do want to concurrently address and check these boxes. But if I could only engage in exercise or only optimize my diet, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. And I strongly feel that food has to come first. That's how you are going to fix your physiology. And that's how you are going to render the remainder of your life so much more enjoyable, so much easier. You know, it's amazing. Sometimes you come across folks who are a bit disheveled and just don't seem particularly patient, and they're not at ease with themselves. And I attribute a lot of that to them just being poisoned with modern foods. I can't imagine somebody who is physiologically optimized, who has slept a sufficient amount, really be in a bad mood. You know, a lot of this is just at the biochemical level. We are fundamentally devoid and deficient of key micronutrients that we need to operate at our best. So let me know if you have any questions. This process totally changed my life. It's been a food prep process that has taken many, many years to refine. And I hope you just see how clean this is, and honestly, how efficient it is. There's no other process that is going to both preserve micronutrients and be this easy to prepare. I'm just going to pull up my browser real quick. Just as an action step for you, you could literally type in Amazon.com. Maybe you could even find a better deal on eBay. Sometimes I like to use that as well. We've got a CAPTCHA challenge here. So we're just going to plug and chug here. And within Amazon, just see what's available to you. Just type in the Instant Pot. They've got 6, 8 quart options. And really any of these are very feasible, very in reach. You can see $83.99 for the Instant Pot Duo 7-in-1. 23,901 reviews. That is the 3 quart, which is interesting. That seems a bit small. Let's see if we can find, I would get at least a 6 quart. So let's type in Instant Pot 6 quart. Yeah, they've got a couple of different models here. You can see the Duo, the Rio. Again, just do your research and find something that's going to be suitable for you. I think if I were to buy another one, I would just buy this beast right here. Looks like an 8 quart. If you can get an 8 quart, more power to you. This is going to be a game changer. Honestly, this is the only utility, the only cooking utility that you need to preserve the most amount of nutrients and to prepare a 10 out of 10 meal every time. Again, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help out. And as always, my friends, until next time, find your freedom. Peace.